What's up YouTube, Cody Bidlow with SprintingWorkouts.com. Today we're going to be talking about things that are going to get in the way of your training being able to transfer to performance in your sport. And if we can identify those and maybe work on them, then we can have a better shot of the time and effort that we spend training, of having that actually result in improvements in our given sport. Now, the first category of things that get in the way of your training being able to transfer is how you progress your training. This could be progressing too quickly, it could be not progressing quickly enough, or it could be focusing on the wrong things when you go about setting up your training progressions. First area I want to cover is chasing the 1% versus the 99%. You'll hear a lot of coaches and people say, oh, well, we want to go for the 1% because everybody's doing the 99%. Well, I would argue that most people are not doing the 99%. Most people don't even know what the 99% is supposed to be. And if you're not doing the most foundational, basic, fundamental things for your training, how do you ever expect to see things like depth jumps, power cleans, max velocity sprinting to transfer if you don't have any foundation upon which to apply those very high intensity training means? What is the 99% that we need to focus on? Well, that's going to be acceleration training, some speed training. Eventually it turns into speed endurance training once you're fit enough. Basic power production work like Olympic lifts between 40 and 60%. Not going for that 99%, 100% effort. We're just trying to get good quality movement patterns, good expression of force and power at a moderate load, moderate velocities. That's good quality 99% type work. If we have a foundation that is built around movement competence, that is built around being able to do a wide range of activities physically, that is built around fitness and sport-specific skill through sprinting, then we're going to have a good shot of transferring. But if all we do is very high-intensity sprinting, very high-intensity lifting, we do nothing to regenerate the body, we do nothing to improve mobility, then we're not going to see transfer. Once you have that 99% built into your program and you've done it effectively for long enough, then you can definitely progress to other things that are more intense. You don't have to stick to 40 to 60% on Olympic lifts forever. Maybe for some people that works great. Maybe some people even go lighter so they can move the bar faster. But plenty of people are going to advance from there and do heavier stuff. It's totally fine. But we don't want to progress too quickly because we want to make sure that those things, those fundamental aspects of our athleticism are in place, so that way we can express ourselves as an athlete, put out force, put out power, and do it in a way that doesn't get us injured and is effective from a technique standpoint. We can only do that stuff if we're well put together. Now, the flip side of all this is we cannot progress too slowly because, say all we do is acceleration work and all we do is go to 30 meters. When are we exposing our body to high velocity sprinting? We're not. We're not going to experience those rhythms, those elastic demands, those velocities. So we do have to progress and we have to move toward the more intense, the faster, maybe sometimes moving toward the heavier stuff. If we don't progress at all, the body's adaptive mechanisms are going to get down-regulated. It's not going to respond to training and you're not going to see any change. So we have to balance foundational types of work, making sure we're doing those basic things first, while also progressing over time toward things that are going to keep pushing the stress on the body, so that way the body can adapt to that stress and improve as a result. The second major category of things that are going to inhibit the transfer of your training from practice into competitive sport is going to be poor recovery, poor sleep, and just generally poor recovery and regeneration type of habits. First of all, we have to consider what workloads we're exposing our body to relative to the timelines with which we have to adapt to those workloads. So if you expect to train every other day at a high intensity level, you can't be doing so much high intensity training on those days that by the time you come back for that next high intensity session, you're still tired, you're too sore, you're too tight, and your body's just messed up because you did too much work on that previous day. If we only have 48 hours to recover before our next session, we need to consider how can we adjust our workloads to allow us to recover by the time we come back. Now, maybe you need to change your timeline, maybe you need to change your workload. But whatever the case, those two things are going to have to be balanced out. And if the workload is high, the timeline has to be expanded. If you have a long period of time between sessions, you can do more work and you'll be able to recover from that. The recovery can be enhanced by that 99% type training that we're talking about, like your general low intensity days where you're doing those body weight circuits, med ball circuits, maybe some light bodybuilding activities, and just, getting good blood flow and getting some low intensity work in. That can really help your recovery. But nothing can help if you're doing too much work considering the amount of time that you have to recover from that work. Sleep hygiene is another big one. You'll hear Dan Paff talk about this a lot. You know, you have to sleep enough, and that sleep has to be at a high enough quality level for you to recover between those sessions. Now, what does this mean? How do we get good quality sleep? Well, first of all, turn off your screens within an hour of going to bed. Turn off the lights and start foam rolling or stretching, or just simply laying on the ground and doing some nice slow breathing. So if every night before you go to bed you do a little foam rolling, you got the lights down, maybe you got some calm, relaxing music playing, that's going to remind your brain, hey, it's time to recover, it's time to fall asleep. And if you can get into good habits with your sleep, that's going to help you recover and be consistent when you're recovering between those sessions, instead of maybe you do the same workout 3 weeks. Every Monday you do the same workout for 3 weeks. Well, if your sleep is all over the place, your recovery from those workouts will not be consistent. We need consistency so that we have some predictability with how we're going to respond to training, and by having good sleep routines, this can really help. So the third major category that I want to cover are structural issues. You have to consider, what structural inhibitions do I have going on that could be, limiting all this other improvement that I'm seeing. I'm jumping higher, I'm lifting more, but I'm not seeing myself sprint faster. Well, maybe it's a structural issue, especially if there's pain involved, because if there's pain involved, then you're going to have inhibition from the neuromuscular system, where the brain is going to hold the body back and say, whoa, don't put out that much effort, don't put out that much force, because this thing hurts and we don't want to get it hurt more. So if you fix the issue that's causing the pain or causing the inhibited movement, it allows you to express the force you already have, or the force you can already generate. It allows you to express that without something getting in the way. If the ankle cannot dorsiflex enough, well, what happens when we hit the ground and we're trying to get into a low shin angle? Well, we can't get into a low shin angle if the ankle can't bend at all. Individual joints need to be able to go through full ranges of motion to allow you to perform at your best. That's why if you do, tissue flossing on your ankle, there's research that shows it improves your jump height and your sprint times, because you're able to go through a more complete range of motion with the ankle and your movement is not inhibited. When your movement is not inhibited, you're able to do what your body is capable of. You're able to express yourself physically because you don't have something holding you back. We also need to have whole body stiffness. We don't want any individual joint to be too stiff, but we do want the body to be able to coordinate whole body stiffness when it hits the ground in a jump, when it hits the ground during sprinting. It needs to be able to stiffen, so that way when we put force into the ground and that force comes back up into the body, that force can then go and push the body, not have the body just flop around and not go anywhere. For example, say you're jumping and you're doing some rudiment hops, and then you're progressing maybe to a double leg bound where it's the same type of jump, it's just going higher, going farther. Well, if you land with sort of a rolling heel first contact, you get a great lining up of the joints of the body in the legs and the spine. And when you do that, when you hit the ground and you're able to time that ground contact with a nice rolling heel first contact and the joints all line up, you get great whole body stiffness and you get off the ground quicker with less effort, and you tend to jump higher. So this is a good simple example of how, the positions that you're in, the posture that you're in, as well as your technique and your physical tissue qualities all come together to allow for the body to be stiff as a whole. And it's not simply that, oh, we did a bunch of ankle isometrics, oh, we did a bunch of core exercises, so now we're going to be stiff when we hit the ground. That's not how transfer works. Transfer works when everything lines up properly, and then you can see that ultimate outcome. Last but not least, we need to talk about technique. If your technique is not on point, you're never going to see the transfer to performance that you would hope to see from the training that you're doing. When we talk about technique, there's all kinds of different aspects, but for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to think of posture, projection, switching, and those are going to be the main points of focus for today's discussion around technique. Your posture is going to dictate how you can strike the ground, both the angle that you strike the ground at, when you strike the ground. It's going to affect how your hip flexors and your hamstrings are put on stretch, depending on if you're posteriorly tilted, anteriorly tilted, or in a neutral position. Your ability to project, that dictates how long you're in the air for, how far you're going, and your ability to reorient your limbs in space before the next ground contact. And then switching is the ability to exchange your limbs or simultaneously reverse and send forward opposite limbs. If I push with my leg into the ground, I need to have that other leg coming through in the opposite direction at the same time. Not consecutively, one after the other. They need to happen simultaneously at the same time. So if our technique is not on point, we're going to have issues and we're not going to see transfer. If our posture's off and we can't strike the ground effectively because we're in a bad position posturally, it doesn't matter how strong and powerful you are from the exercises you did at the gym or in your plyometrics or whatever, it's not going to transfer to sprinting if you can't get your limb in the right position and strike at the right angle. If you can't project through the air and you can't get enough air time and send yourself horizontally and balance the vertical and horizontal projection that we need to see in sprinting, then you're not going to hit the ground at the right time. Maybe you're going to hit it too soon or too late. It's going to impede your ability to reorient your limbs and strike the ground effectively. To switch properly, we need the timing to be able to get those limbs to exchange at the same time, and that allows us to be efficient when we sprint, because we need to combine stride length with stride frequency in order to sprint fast. If all we ever do is project as far as we can, we're not going to have good stride frequency. On a similar tone, if all we do is tap, tap, tap the ground and we never launch ourselves, we're not going to get enough stride length to go far enough to run fast. So how do we balance that? By switching. When we switch, when we simultaneously exchange limbs in the air, we're going to get that next strike down onto the ground as soon as possible while not, neglecting our need for projection. If we switch, we can project, switch our limbs, project, switch our limbs, project, and not be losing time, not be inefficient when we're doing that. If instead we just try to bound our way there and we sort of pause and then switch, but the timing isn't there and it's not that quick switching that we want to see, then we're going to be inefficient because we're focusing too much on stride length, not enough on stride frequency. So if you get your switching down and you're able to exchange your limbs in the air, that's going to allow you to be efficient. And if you're efficient, you'll use less energy and you'll move quicker and you'll see a better transfer to your performance in your sprinting. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you really got something out of this. If you liked it, hit a thumbs up. If you hate it, hit a thumbs down. Leave a comment with your questions, concerns, anything like that, or if you have some insights into things that help you with your transfer of training, let us know. Check out the links below. I got programs and all that good stuff. And until next time, this is Cody Bidlow with SprintingWorkouts.com, signing off.